Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Gallacher.
Hello. Yeah, thank you all for coming. We're going to be doing a bit of a directing actors workshop. We're going to keep it quite informal and fun. And I've got Peter and Lytham who are going to act for us. Normally when I do these sort of workshops, I tend to get a scene that I really, really love to do because that's really fun to play with. But I was thinking, wouldn't it be more fun to do a scene that I think is absolutely terrible and then try and see how, as filmmakers and as actors, we can make that better, and what we can do that are very simple, basic techniques to make things better that seem to be lacking in a lot of new filmmaking these days. So, first of all, hands up, who is a filmmaker here? I assume probably most people. Yeah, perfect. So, any actors? Nice. So, I want to kind of go through stuff that I personally think is getting missed and is lacking in modern filmmaking, but it is the basics that I think people overlook. There's an awful lot of people that are like, just pick up an iPhone and go and make a movie, and I'm like, that's great, go and do that, but you also have to learn why you're doing what you're doing, what you can do in a scene to make things better. So the scene that we're going to do, I don't think I can get it up on here, sadly, but the scene we're going to do is from the new Captain America film, Brave New World, which I honestly think is a shockingly bad film. This particular scene is so badly directed and put together. I probably shouldn't say this on camera, but it just is. It was probably a reshoot. They had to do it very quickly, everything else. But even when you're in those tight, difficult situations where they're like, you've only got 3 shots, you can only have this much time to do it, you've only got an hour, you could still make interesting filmmaking and everything else. So, because I can't show you the clip, I'll very quickly talk you through it, and then we'll get you guys up, probably essentially act it as simply as they did, which is not that difficult. It's literally stand next to each other and talk. But we'll talk about it, and then we'll talk about what we can do as directors and as actors to make that scene more interesting. So the scene that I want to do, it's got, anybody caught up with Marvel, up to date? Most people. It's the only slop on screen these days. Sorry, Kevin, finally. I actually don't hate Marvel that much, I love Marvel, but this film annoys me. So it's the scene in the President's office with President Ross and Sam, and President Ross is like, I want you to put the Avengers back together. And he's like, the Avengers? And it's like, oh, that thing that you apparently now sound like you've never heard of, but that thing that those people you fought with. And it's shot in 3 shots. The most simple studio shooting you've ever seen. Anybody that's ever watched any simple tutorial on how to shoot a scene, it's as simple as that. They do a wide 2 shot, and then 1 single, and 1 single. And there's no camera movement, there's no tenseness, there's no trying to figure out status, there's nothing in it at all. For a very, very poignant scene that's, you know, as large as the saga is and everything else. So, I'll get you guys up to act it as simply as possible, as it kind of is in the thing. We'll watch it, and then we'll discuss about what you guys think we can do to make things more interesting. And my kind of thinking is, we still only want to do it in 3 shots. So we're going to put ourselves into the sort of parameters that they had, but we have less toys than they would have had. But we'll still see if we could do it in 3 shots. We'll do various different versions of it, and you guys can tell me what kind of things you would do to get a better performance out of these guys and a better performance out of the camera to elevate the scene into something that would actually be watchable. So you guys want to jump up? Doesn't matter which. You're Ross, you're Sam, right?
Yes.
That's where. So the other way around, actually. This way, right? Yeah. That way around. Essentially, that was the blocking. That was the entire blocking of this scene that they had. So when you're ready, guys, and action.
You and I haven't always agreed on how much latitude enhanced individuals deserve. What you've accomplished has given me reason to reconsider, which is why I'd like you, Captain America, to reform the Avengers.
The Avengers?
Yes, sir.
With all due respect, sir, when you signed the Sokovia Accords, you tore the Avengers apart. Why the change of heart?
I represent all Americans now. Hell, half of them wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Avengers. This country needs you.
And what if we don't manage a situation? What happens then?
We work it out together.
Lovely. What a great scene. That's not some absolutely terrible writing. What's hilarious is, sorry, what's your name? Freddie. Freddie already shot it better than they did. The framing was more interesting. It was an over-the-shoulder. In the original one, it was just clean singles. Literally clean singles. There's nothing about it that had any weight, any tension, anything. And again, I'm not having a go at the director. It probably was due to the fact that they had no time, they were rushed. It was probably a scene that they added in, rewrote, whatever. But what I want to say is, how can we make that small interaction more interesting? How do we do that? Very, very simply. And there's like a whole bunch of different ways that we can do that. One of the best ways to do it is we can play with status. I'm sure you've all heard of play with status in terms of scenes. So who has the status in the scene? So we've got President Ross and Sam, who both are big characters within the film. It's Sam's film, but he's also talking to the President of the United States. So how do we create a world in where one of them feels like they have more power over the other, and how does that change throughout the scene? And what can we do? Because essentially all the scene is just two people stood there. I mean, it's the most basic filmmaking ever. So what can we do? Anybody got any ideas about what we could do to give one of them more status than the other?
You could have either one standing up, overpowering, or even sat down, because he's that relaxed. It's the president at his desk.
There you go. Already we've made it more interesting. So if I get Peter, if you sit on this chair, and then Freddie, can I get you to swing the camera around here?
Yeah, of course.
So I can move the chair out of the way to start with.
If I just can...
And you're going to frame up on Peter. And then Nicola, if you can be off camera, but that side of camera right. So Freddie now frames up. If you go in quite tight to start off with, Freddie. And then you can kind of maybe do a little tilt and pull back as we start. Yeah. Or even if you go in close and then just do a dolly back.
Yes.
And Peter, so what your first line is?
We haven't always agreed on how enhanced individuals.
And after that, stand up. So that we're then going to change that power dynamic. You're relaxed to start off with. Sam's coming into the room, and you're controlling the space essentially. Does it make sense?
It's not that.
It's not that high. It's all right.
It is pretty much that high, yeah. It's latitude enhanced.
There we go. So once you, and Freddie, if you just take your cue off, whenever Peter feels comfortable, that it feels like the right moment to stand up during the scene, you stand up, you pull back.
Would it work if I have glasses on here and took the glasses off there?
Yeah, absolutely.
It feels, that's the prop as a prop to
there you go.
perhaps add a little bit of something to it. I don't know whether it works or not, but...
Now we've got another, it all adds to it. So all of a sudden, all these little things, they're really not that complicated things for somebody to think about when you're directing a scene, but instantly to put glasses on, he's going to take them off. So his power is sort of showing that, and again, not wearing glasses on a normal everyday thing, but it can create a false sense of security in a scene, because it's a thing that, like having, think about the scene with Willy Wonka at the start of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the original Gene Hackman one. The whole reason he walks with a cane at the start with a limb and then does the somersault is to say to everybody, everything from this point on you don't know whether it's truth or lies. So using these little things, so having glasses on makes President Ross make himself feel more vulnerable to start off with, the fact that he sat down as well. And then when he starts to talk to Sam, he's like, actually, I'm going to show you that I'm in charge. And that just changes the power dynamic of the whole scene, creating more interest and intrigue, tension, and everything else. So if we just start with this little moment, and then when you're ready, and action.
You and I haven't always agreed on how much latitude enhanced individuals require. But what you accomplished has given me reason to reconsider, which is why I want you, Captain America, to help me rebuild the Avengers.
The Avengers?
Nice, lovely. Let's just cut it there. I know there was, Freddie, sorry, first try on that one.
Okay, sorry.
No, don't be silly. Massive. A little bit of shaky camera work, but already there was that little bit of movement changed everything. The glasses coming off, everything else. Even if Peter, if you start off, maybe you're a little bit like that with glasses. Give it a beat. Acknowledge that Sam's coming into the room, and then start. So let's just give that a go, and then see how that feels. Freddie, I'm not going to judge you crap camera work.
Can I move this table just a little?
Yeah, I'll do that how you want.
Thanks.
There you go. Okay, and action.
You and I haven't always agreed on how much latitude enhanced individuals deserve. But what you've accomplished has given me reason to reconsider, which is why I want you, Captain America, to help me rebuild the Avengers.
The Avengers?
Lovely. Look at that. How much more interesting is that? And how difficult is that for them to have done? I did that in 30 seconds with one little prompt. It's about creating more interest in the scene. We will go through, we'll add different things. What would you then say? So if you were blocking the scene, you start off, Peter's going to be sat down, Nicholas is going to come into the room. How would you then proceed? He's going to get up, he's going to go to there. Do you think it needs any more blocking? Do they then just come together and we play the scene out as it is? Or would you get the characters to do anything else?
You'd want to see Freddie coming in.
Well, Nicola could come in.
Sorry, Nicholas.
You could bring her into frame. It's alright. You could bring her into frame, but so just ignore the camera for now. I know we kind of jumped the gun and sort of did the first shot, but in terms of the blocking, Peter's going to be sat down, starting off like that. Nicola's coming into the room. We've done our first line, and you've said, you've gotten up, you've said,
The Avengers.
Yes, sir.
With all due respect, sir, when you passed the Sokovia Accords, you tore the Avengers apart. Why the change of heart?
Well, I represent all Americans now. Hell, half of them wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for the Avengers.
And if we can't agree on how to manage a situation, what happens then?
Figure it out. Together.
nice. So that's essentially still where it gets to as thing. Do we want Nicholas at any point where you feel like you need to to moving closer? Do you feel like you want to do a walk past him, a do-si-do, anything like that that feels where you're going to change the status, because you're going to try and get the status back in the scene?
I would have loved a table, sir.
Yeah? You want a table?
With all due respect, sir, when you signed.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Throw that down.
Might be a little low.
That's all right. Guys, it's all practice. It's not,
That I've helpfully left my jewellery and glasses. Just popped them over here.
It's all good. The other question I'm going to ask is, what are, and again this goes back to like the most basics of acting, is what do they both want out of this scene? Because every time you do a scene, that's what you're looking at. What does my character want from this scene? And as a director, you've got to go, what do the characters want from my story, so that each scene they're moving forward in their story. So obviously President Ross is really simple. He wants to reform the Avengers. What does Sam want from this scene? It's a little bit more tricky. And again, from Sam, so a little bit kind of poor writing, because it's Sam's story and nobody really knows what he wants in this scene. But he's been called to talk to the President. What do you think, from the information that you've got out of this scene, what does Sam want from the President?
I think Sam wants to ensure that he kind of retains control of himself, because Ross not only does he want to reform the Avengers, he's trying to reform the Avengers under him and make an order, and I don't think Sam kind of rallying against that. Yeah, that's not what being a hero is about.
Great. Yeah?
I think Ross's is more complicated.
Oh, go on.
I think he is going to reform the Avengers, but he wants Captain America on side to make it look good in the public eye. So you're going to do it anyway, but you need to persuade him to think it's a good idea. I think it's much more complicated than I want you to do this. It's happening. This is my plan. I need to now make you think that you're on board with it and in charge.
Nice. Can we try and play those? Yeah? Do you want to come out and do it as a two-shot, so that you can sort of see it? Play it exactly the same opening as you did, but then yeah, if you want to do all of the table banging and everything else.
It's a bit low,
I know.
so I'm thinking a chair back might work better.
Chair back? Yeah, we can do that. Get my stuff out of the way. I would like the table being in there as a prop on the chair. Just have it. There we go.
That's better.
Great. Here we go. So, Nicola, if you start off camera and you come in, as if you come into the room, so we'll start with President Ross on his own. I'll give it 2 beats after action, walk in, so we get this nice moment of Ross on his own, and then, yeah. Okay, and action.
You and I haven't always agreed on how much latitude enhanced individuals deserve. But what you've accomplished has given me reason to reconsider, which is why I want you, Captain America, to help me rebuild the Avengers.
The Avengers?
Yes, sir.
With all due respect, sir, when you passed the Sokovia Accords, you tore the Avengers apart. Why the change of heart?
Because I represent all Americans now. Hell, half of them wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for the Avengers. This country needs...
And what if we can't agree on how to manage a situation? What happens then?
And we work it out. Together.
Nice. I love that, because that adds another element. The handshake. Does Sam go for it at the end or not? Do we cut away before we see it? That'll add something else. I quite like. There's something else I was going to do, because I quite like it. I think it'd be quite fun. If I can have you, instead of sat down, imagining that you're looking at some kind of mural, maybe a war gone by or something like that, or another famous president on the wall. Sam comes in. You're not even going to turn. And you're going to deliver that first line with your back. Because that, again, establishes your status, and that's going to really piss Sam off.
And you want to turn at the same time as the stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I feel comfortable. And just see how that
Without
feels.
glasses though this time.
I think you can have them in your hand, and then I think even if we just push this back, so then you can still have the chair, but then I'd love it if you walk in the end, put the hand out for the handshake, and then you just decide whether he's earned the handshake or not. That's your whole thing. So if we narrow that down now to what Ross and Sam want, just in the most basics for this scene, Ross wants to get a handshake off Sam to agree on setting up the Avengers. Sam needs to know that whatever he's getting from Ross deserves him taking his hand as a handshake. Like the most basic, simple thing. So you've got to work to get your handshake. You've got to see whether he deserves it or not. And if he doesn't deserve it, don't shake his hand. Okay? Cool. If you start off, imagine that TV is a nice mural of thing. In fact, if you come in, Freddie, I don't know if you can get just here, sort of over the shoulder of Nicola.
Yeah.
I probably crossed the lines and nobody tell me off for breaking the 180-degree rule. We haven't got to that point of blocking yet. We're still playing, which is fun. If you kind of come into that, that'd be great.
So can I ask something?
Yeah, of course.
So when they shake hands at you,
Yeah.
what if the camera was kind of not rather than at an angle, more directly on them?
Well, that would be a cut. I would actually have, I think eventually, once we come down to, I'd probably have a close-up with the hand coming out.
Right.
Is that what you would kind of...
Well, I mean, like, yeah. So probably that with also a shot of them both in dead profile.
Yes.
Shake hands.
So once we finish this blocking, we'll go through and figure out how many shots we need and what those shots will be.
Yeah. And then how you combine them.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
Right.
I just keep putting the camera in places because whilst we're blocking, I get to show you what we might see on here.
Yeah.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, guys, and action.
You and I never agreed on how much latitude enhanced individuals deserve. What you've achieved is a reason to reconsider. Which is why I want you, Captain America, to help me rebuild the Avengers.
The Avengers.
Yes, sir.
With all due respect, sir, when you passed the Sokovia Accords, you tore the Avengers apart. Why the change of heart?
I represent all Americans now. Hell, half of them wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for the Avengers. This country needs...
And what if we can't agree on how to manage a situation? What happens then?
Then we work it out. Together.
Cut that. Lovely. Nice. That was really good. And I love that because as a director in my head, I go, we'll cut out of that scene. We don't ever need to see whether Sam does the handshake. We just cut to the next scene. We leave that information open for the next thing. Now that would be the basic blocking I would do. I like that. The note there. We could get a lovely camera shot. Ross close up here. I'll come back this way so I'm not hidden, but like close up here. Full focus onto Nicola as she comes in. We'd probably do a nice 2-shot here. 1, 2. I'd probably end up doing this in 4 shots. 3 shots with an insert of the handshake at the end. And those 4 shots would be this shot from here, cover it, and then shot from here that starts off with both of them in frame, and then we pull focus to Nicola on that shot, and this shot has Nicola walk in, and then you pull focus to President Ross. So it's 2 shots that get quite a lot of different information, because when Ross is there and we've got the close-up on him, but then when he turns away, then you pull focus to Nicola, and you've suddenly got two people doing something interesting in frame, but you've captured two different moments in one shot, which makes cutting more interesting. And then you just do the insert of that close-up of the hand at the end. Does that sort of make sense?
That makes sense, and you can see that unfolding as you're doing it with actors there. So in like a rehearsal space, I can see that coming together quite quickly. But how would you, for a scene for a film or the whole film, would you be thinking about this at the time of when you've got the sides and when you've got the script, storyboarding, or what?
Well, it all depends. I mean, it depends on who you are as a director. I am very much a prep-based director, but I've realised over the years that I really don't like doing storyboards because I'm not as free. And I love to do this. I mean, we've blocked that scene in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It didn't take long, did it? We've rehearsed it, we know the blocking, we come up with cool ideas. We've gone from two people stood talking, and that's what I would normally do. I'd just have them talk, do their line run, and then it was like, oh, it's interesting if you're sat down. And then we've got, actually, it's more interesting if you're stood over there, because your back's to the character that's coming in, and your status then is really, like, if he's sat down, he's got, like you said, that cool, relaxed status, but if he's not even acknowledging Sam as he comes in, he holds all the status in the room. I mean, he should anyway, it's the president's house. Sam is there to try and take it, and it's Sam's story. But by playing it in that way, we've created all these different levels of tension. And I would, on the day, I love to get actors in and play. That's what I love to do. So normally on a shooting day, I'll be like, okay, I've got maybe a shot list that I've come up with some clever shots that I want to do. If it's a scene where I know that it's going to be a walk and talk, I know in my head that's going to be on Steadicam, I know, or on a long track, and I know that that's going to be that thing. So I will talk to the actors beforehand and go, this is what I want from the scene. Something like this, I'll come in and be like, right, this is your playing space. I need to do it in X amount of shots. I'll have that in my head because I've got, my call sheet says I've got 2 hours to shoot it. So I have to go, okay, how long is that? That's 20 minutes per shot, roughly. Luckily, if I'm on a Marvel movie, it's at least 2 cameras, so I can do at least 2 shots at the same time. Probably the wide and the close-up of the handshake I could probably do at the same time, and then 2 single shots. So that means roughly I've got an hour and a half to shoot that scene once I've done the blocking and everything else. So I'll do the blocking for 20 minutes, set up the cameras, 4 shots, do it quite quickly. That's how I like to sort of play. Obviously, it becomes more complicated if you've got more actors in the room. And it gives these guys, because for me, directing actors is all about, it's all about playing. Like, when you've got great actors who come in and give you options, give you new things that they can do. Like, oh, I think the glasses is a good thing. I think I'm going to move here. I've worked with actors that will always give me something so that when I go in, I go, oh, that sparked an idea. But there are other days when I go, I have to shoot it this way because it connects to these different moments, and I explain that to the actors and they go, great, where do you want me to start? Where do you want me to stop? And I do that. Does that sort of all make sense? Yes.
How much time do you work in for after you've spoken to them and done a rehearsal? What's your timing in your mind for the crew to get set up ready to do that?
So usually, depending on the lighting setup and everything else, it's usually about 50. Well, on a morning, it would normally be, so if I'm on set, if I was ADing and my director was doing this, I would like to be turning over within the first hour. So half an hour to block, half an hour to light and get ready, and then be shooting within the hour. So I'd say, realistically, depending on how much lighting there is to do, on a film it's very different. On a film this size, they're probably only shooting 2 pages a day. Plenty of time to do whatever they want. Whereas in TV, you're maybe shooting 5 pages a day, and you don't have that much time to light and set, and you won't have all the toys. So you've got to be more efficient with how you do stuff.
What else do you have to be aware of? They've arrived,
Yeah.
and you're seeing the whole picture. What are the other things you're quickly ticking off? That's been done, that's been done, that's been done.
Any props that they might need, that would be in my head.
Do you notice that? Are you thinking about that, or do you expect everyone else to know that?
They should all know that beforehand. It will all be, as the t-shirt says, it's on the call sheet. It should always be on the call sheet. Action props, any VFX, special effects, any action vehicles, essays, extras, all of that stuff should all be on the call sheet. And then every team should know what they need for the day. There are some days that you turn up and actors are like, I need those props to start. I need those for the rehearsal, I need them for the block. And there are other actors that are like, don't worry about it, I can pretend I'm shuffling papers and you can bring me that later on down the line. But on a given day, I'd turn up, I wouldn't have a camera at the start, I'd turn up, my 2 actors, I clear everybody else off set except for my DP, my script supervisor, me and the actors, and go through and go, okay, let's do a line run, let's figure out how we're going to block it. My first AD would be there as well going. We block it and we go through, and then once we blocked it, I would then be like, okay, I've seen where the actors are going to be, I know that you're going to start off over there, you're going to come into the room, and then I go in my head, how many shots do I need to cover this scene? And then that'll determine how long I know I need on that scene. And if I suddenly go, crap, I actually need 7 shots on this, I then have to look at the day and go, what scenes can I decide that I need to cut down shots on? And that really helps me. But when it comes to actors, what I want to do is give them enough time to create a performance and to give us something different every time. We have just done there in how many different takes did we do that? Like 4? And that already became way more interesting. And if anybody has YouTube, you can go and watch the scene, or Disney Plus, you can go and watch the scene. It's really so boring. And it's literally just 2 actors facing each other. There's no movement, there's no real tension, there's no build-up or anything else. Whereas that, just by having that little bit of movement, that little bit of creativity, we've created a scene that's much more visually interesting. Imagine Ross is, looking at a painting. I mean, he's a famous president, so he's maybe looking at, and he was an army general, so maybe he's looking at the Battle of Trafalgar, or a scene, a shot from the Civil War or something, where he could be looking at it and being like, maybe I could have prevented something like this if I had the Avengers. And we're going to see all of that in that shot in his face. And we've given him something that he can look at to do that. And as a sort of little Easter egg is when we come and do Sam's shot, we're going to see that. We're going to start probably on, the photo, and even you might go, oh, actually what I'll do is, once we've done all the essential shots for this scene, is go, maybe I'll get a second unit to stay here with the camera, or B camera, just to do a locked off shot of that painting, because it might be good to have that as an opening shot for the scene. And then we cut back to see what, you cut back to maybe Ross's face, to see what he's looking at. Nicola comes in, cut back to that shot, cut back to the wide, probably cut into the handshake.
Just looking at the blocking, at what point would you think, okay, I can, with the same amount of shots, if you put a track down, you could sort of tighten in, push in onto the president where he's making his point, tighten, oh, is she going to shake your hand, shake her hand. So with a very simple...
Yeah, I mean, we could lay a track here, and probably you could do the majority of it.
Just that 2 shot.
Yeah.
You could relay it there 2 shot time.
Well, if you had the track here, and the only thing you'd need to do is maybe turn the dolly around for the other shot, you could have a track here. Depending on the type of shot, you could have a sort of maybe over the shoulder pull back, and then flip the dolly around and do exactly the same. But I would talk to my DOP about that, and they, you know.
I've worked with blocking and cameras basically, so I would watch that blocking with you, and then we could put a track down here.
Yeah.
Is there a window there? Could you stay off the window?
Yeah, exactly. And that to me, as soon as, you know, that's why my DOP's in the room, and I go, so these are the sort of shots that I want. This is the coverage that I need. And they go, okay, well we could do a track, or we could, you know, have a think about it depending on whether we're on location or on a stage. And they go, oh, well, actually, wouldn't it be really good to do a shot through the window? We'll do a crane shot through and in, or we do something. You know, and that's the sort of stuff.
The time available, the tools you've got.
Yeah.
And,
always is. It's all about time and money, and that is always kind of what you've got to look at to kind of help get your film to work. And essentially, when you're up against it, one thing that I've been taught and told quite a lot is, if you've got a scene where you're really struggling, so say we had to do this scene in 2 shots, what would be the 2 shots that you would essentially need to cover this scene?
2 singles, I'd say.
Almost. A wide and a single on number 1.
Right.
So you do the 2 shot, and then a single on your lead, because that covers your entire scene. You can make any scene work, because essentially you can shoot it all in the wide, and then you just go in for the last line on the prominent character, because it's their story. That is what when it comes to coverage, that is all you ever really need. Everything else is trying to get it to look as great and interesting as possible. Yeah.
Just a question about that. So the other night I watched the Ozu film called The End of Summer, and one of the characteristics of the film is that he never moves the camera, he just plants the camera and lets the people move.
Yeah.
Now you've got the depth of field in the shot, obviously, because you know it's the sort of Japanese thing, and you've got these beautiful scenes, but there's no tracking shots, there's no cut, there's no zip. He more or less just plants it and lets them move, similar to what you just said about the 2 shots. Is that sort of thing strictly auteur theory, or would you be able to do something like that?
No, it all depends on the style of what you want to create in the film, and those kind of films. I mean, Kurosawa was a sort of master of it, and Spielberg as well. Slightly different with Kurosawa and Spielberg, because they love to do a little move, but within that frame, and I'm assuming it's the same. I haven't seen the film, but you get actors to move in and out of frame and create, so you can have a single wide shot, but somebody will move close to camera, so suddenly it becomes a mid shot for that person, then they move away and it becomes a wide shot or a medium close, or 2 people come in, and you can get all of that. And if your blocking is interesting enough, you can hold the audience's attention. If your blocking isn't interesting, it becomes quite painful, and you need the time to rehearse that to get that right. It's the same way with films like Adolescence. It's all, the series Adolescence, but it's all rehearsal based to get that movement and everything technically correct. Whereas this is much more sort of 101 basics way of shooting. But it should be the stuff that should be quite integral to your filmmaking, like your toolbox, but a lot of people forget about it. And it's the same way when people come onto set, especially when you're starting out, when you're doing your short films and stuff, you're like, I've got an idea for a shot. And you'll shoot that shot and then you realise that you haven't blocked the scene to make all of the elements work. So you've got to come in and go, okay, I'm going to block the scene, how do I block this? And you know, if you decide you've got an actor that's going to walk one way and then the other person's going to go this way, and you go, oh crap, that breaks the line, I now can't shoot that way, and your DP goes, can't do those 2 shots. So you have to adjust your blocking to mean that you can always shoot on the right side of the line. Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion from an actor's perspective?
Yeah, of course.
So one of the things I find that is quite often forgotten or overlooked when you're working, if you're in an indie film, it's quite often forgotten because you're on such a tight schedule. And when you're working on something a bit bigger, it's assumed that as an actor you'll just do it, so you're not instructed. But it's like micro blocking. So for example, from what you guys are saying, when you've got limited shots to do, how do you keep it interesting? How do you add movement when the actors can't move because they need to be on their mark? And the micro blocking is posture. So like, for example, with this scene, when I was watching it with the blocking you've got, because you've got the blocking at the beginning is working really well, but the point where Sam's power changes is like hard to do, but it's very simple in terms of doing like micro blocking. So if I were to be Sam, he's a military man, he's under the employ of the president because there is no Avengers. So when obviously you have the power at the start, but you're going to take it. And it's such a simple thing as going from a military stance on your position. You don't even need to change your blocking, you just drop the military stance on the line where you're like, and what if we don't agree? What if we don't agree on something? Because now you've taken the power. And that moment, and all it is a basic posture change. You haven't changed the blocking, you haven't changed the camera angles, you don't need an extra shot. It's just a simple, tiny thing, but it's quite often not directed when you're on an indie film because sometimes the directors haven't thought about it or they've not necessarily always got the most experience working with actors, so it's left out. Or when you're working with a more experienced director, they expect the actor to just do it.
Yeah,
so it gets missed quite a lot, actually.
Yes, and I do think there's a lot to be said about that. I always feel that an actor should come with as many, so Tom Hanks talked about it, it's like, be on time, know your lines, come with an idea. Always. And if that is a micro blocking thing that you're going to bring to it, because I do not mean this disrespectfully to actors in any way, you have one job. As a director, you've got 1,000 different things to think about. As a first AD, they've got 1,000 things to think about. Props have got, do I have the action props today? Do I have the action props for tomorrow? Is there something that we now need that the directors come up with and go, oh, actually, it'd be really great if, and the guy's like, I asked about this in prep, and you said no, and now you want it, and now I have to get somebody to go do it. So if you come into a scene and you've got an idea like that, it's always good to use them. The director might go, I didn't like it. Or they go, that was really great, can we add, this, that and the other. That is your job as an actor to come in. And I do think a lot of the time that directors might miss those things because they just do not have the capacity in their brain. And especially on smaller projects where you don't have the time or money to think about it, then those things do get lost. But that's what blocking's for. That's why you have this time to block and rehearse. And you block first, you set up your cameras, then you do a rehearsal on camera, then you shoot. That should be, as much as everybody thinks that filmmaking is fun and freeing and everything else, the basics are always the same. You turn up, you block the scene, you set up your cameras, you rehearse, then you shoot. And as much as that's like kind of boring and regimented, it's the only way to get the creativity that you want elsewhere. Yeah.
Just a quick question. So let's talk about blocking in shots. How much is delivery down to the director? Is that more your thing with rehearsal, or expecting the actors to come with again?
Again, that should come through what they've brought with them and what you have decided on the scene. So, as we were talking about status and delivery in terms of one of the major things, and we were talking about this before everybody came, is like, actually me and Chris were talking about this, listening. As an actor, you need to listen. It's one thing I see a lot in rehearsals, and it's one thing that a few actors have been talking about recently, about actors having earpieces in. So I know that quite a few actors have earpieces in so that somebody delivers their lines to them, because they can't, like, script changes, everything else, stuff gets changed so much that they're like, oh, I learned all my lines, and then the director's like, actually, these are your lines? So they'll have somebody off camera feeding their lines into them. The problem with that, though, is you're not listening. You're not listening to your scene partner. So you'll see that somebody will be like, I'm telling you my line, and the person that's there goes, and now it's my line. And you lose so much between actors from that. So Delivery, I'll never say never, but I try my absolute hardest never to tell an actor how to deliver a line. I think it's insulting. I think you have to find, as a director, great ways to be able to inform actors on how you tell them that information. And something that I always do is call up my actors beforehand. On every job, doesn't matter whether it's a main part or a one-line part, I will have a conversation with that actor beforehand to talk about what it is that I want from them, or their character, or how they like to be directed is a big one. I always ask how actors like to be directed, because there are some actors that will be like, please give me a line delivery. Tell me exactly how you want that line delivered and I'll do it every time. There are other actors that go, if you ever tell me how to deliver a line, I will walk off your set and I'll never come back. And there's other actors who you go, you're going to a big spiel. As I did tell you, I am chatty. I did tell you that. But not when I'm directing actors. But I'll try not to be too chatty with actors. But if I want something from them, I'll try and tell them a little story. Like I said about looking at the mural, it might be Trafalgar, it might be something. You've got that thought process in your head, so what is it that you're looking at, what's going through your mind? Some actors will go, just tell me whether I'm happy or sad. Tell me if I'm angry. And then you go, okay, can you just be angry? And they're like, yeah. And they'll nail it and they'll give you some kind of performance that you never expected. But they'll just go, I'm angry, just give me that kind of direction. So you've got to know how every actor likes to play, and then you've got to try and manage all of that. And the fun and the difficult thing of being a director is if you've got like 6 different people on set or more and everybody likes to be directed in a different way, is trying to manage that. Like the majority of your job is people management, and that's not just your cast, that's your crew as well. You get about 10% worth of actual creativity where you're not having to deal with producers, execs, actors that have egos, people that want your time, like, somebody getting angry about this, that, and the other not working. And you've got all these different people around you trying to give you the space to be creative, but you still have to manage all these different elements. And then on top of that, you might be filming outside and the weather's decided that it's not going to work, or all of a sudden the place that you were going to be filming, locations has now turned around and said, so the people that said that we were okay to film here are now kicking off and don't want us to film in this area, but we can only film in this area, and I know that you've blocked out all of the idea for the stuff over here, and now you've got to do that. And this is even before the actors have arrived, and you're going, okay, how do I actually? And then when the actors turn up, you've got to put on all the smiles and be like, hey guys, how's it going? Like, let's get into it. So it's all about that people management, and that is the biggest thing. If you can get into how actors love to be directed, then that will really, really help you as a director. Sorry, I do realise I'm waffling on. Anybody else got any questions? Right. Cool. Yeah, I think that's kind of it, because I'm worried that I'll probably waffle on for longer than the 5 minutes.
I was just going to suggest, we were talking just before, and I was saying to increase the tension at the start of the scene as well, while you've got your back turned and then come in. There could be a really awkward silence.
Yeah, you can extend that time out, and we can extend that as long as possible, because we can always cut it down in post.
Exactly, but it's just a lovely way of emphasising the power difference really at that moment.
There's something as well which I'm alright. Well, it's around and just say, which is why Captain America, I want you to help me, and I say rebuild the Avengers. I think a pauser is going to give it a lot more. I don't know, which is why I want you, Captain America, to help me.
Help you.
To rebuild the Avengers.
Yeah. And it's lovely because you can make it sarcastic, help you, or angry, or whatever.
Exactly. And this is the stuff that we would play with in the blocking process, and kind of go through it and be like, does that work? Is that a good suggestion? Oh, I like that suggestion. But could we maybe do it this way? That's your great way of getting out of not doing the thing that they want you to do. And I was like, oh, that's really good. However, you did it this way. Because a lot of times actors will come up with ideas and sometimes they don't work, but you don't want to hurt their ego. And I
don't get offended.
No,
I don't.
you're all good. But I'm saying in general, like, there are people that will be. So it's always good to kind of go, how do I tell them that that's not an idea that I want, but this is a good way to go?
So, quick question. So the film you showed yesterday, your Blackpool film.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So this is a Marvel film. How different is it with the Blackpool, given the scenes in the bar with the comedian and whatnot, how much of this did you do in that situation?
I mean, I did all of this. The good thing was, Andy, who plays Billy, I've known him for a very long time, so we have a really great shorthand, and he's been thinking about that character for a very long time because he was helping produce the film as well. So he had that character in his head for quite a while. So I didn't have to give him too much direction. It was more because we were shooting out of sequence. It was always like, where's your mindset at this point in the story? Are you, on the edge, or is it like, are you not this far? But with Andy, his comic timing is brilliant. His improv is great. The scene in the bar with Parrot was an additional scene, so we had a lot more time to do that. So you'll notice that probably has more shots than any other scene in the film, because it's the only scene where I actually had a lot of time to do it, because I had half a day to do one scene. Whereas the scene in the shop, we had 2 hours to shoot that. The scene in the bar, we only had a couple hours to shoot that. The tram scene took almost an entire morning because of weather, but that shouldn't have been that complicated, but there was a lot of issues with how we could do it and everything else. But that's the thing, so the scene with the Parrot and Malcolm and everything, because I knew I had more time, I could play a lot more, whereas other scenes it could be like, this, that and the other, that's what we're going to shoot.
Well, I remember you said you did a lot of guerrilla filmmaking techniques for that film. Does that affect your blocking? Because obviously there is the risk of you being told to move on.
Yeah.
So does that affect kind of the preparation for this?
It does, yeah. So there's the scene with Andy drinking on the pier, and then we cut to a close where it looks like he's on a pier. He's actually not. He's on the railings by the side of the pier because we weren't allowed on. So we guerrillaed the wide and just said, Andy, go on the pier, and we filmed from miles away. And then it was going to be another shot, and my editor put them together, and I was like, oh, it looks like he's on the pier, this works really well. And there was a lot of the sort of guerrilla stuff where it was just we just had to follow him. The other stuff, so a lot of the guerrilla stuff was all on the DV cam. So that was kind of how we separated those out as well, because we were like, if that stuff's guerrilla, we know that that's going to have a certain look and a certain freedom, whereas the stuff that's on the Alexa, it's more regimented, it's more conventional filmmaking. And again, we probably didn't have much more than this. We didn't have a slider, I didn't have a dolly, I didn't have, I had a canvas, a head and legs, that was all I got to play with. And then we did a gimbal for the bit outside the tower.
The shot in the bar with the blonde girl,
Yeah.
So that kind of looked like guerrilla filmmaking, but I guess that was more of a setup thing.
Yeah.
Was it? But you had that sort of style of...
We just always wanted to kind of keep that rawness and raw energy to Blackpool, because it's a very raw, gritty film, and we wanted it to have that sort of working class filmmaking style to it. Kind of our thought process was it had to be Ken Loach or Train Spotting meets Florida Project was always what was in my head. So again, Florida Project, Sean Baker does a lot of guerrilla filmmaking, and then it's always ask for forgiveness, not permission, and just try and get away with it as much as possible. And again, it's when you've got your actors involved, it's getting your actors into that mentality of okay, I'm going to give you some information at the start, and then I'm just going to film you, so you just got to go with it. And what's great about Andy is because he grew up being in Shea Meadows stuff where it's all improv, he has that mentality. He's always good to be ready to go, oh cool, improv, I get it. Whereas other actors might not be too excited about that. I've worked with some actors that just like, I hate improv. I hate doing it, it just doesn't work for me. I come in, I know my lines, I know what I'm doing, I want to do this. And other actors are like, oh no, I'll like play, and you do your blocking, and they come up with some jokes, and you're like, oh, try that one in the shot, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to do a single on you, so I go improv, like do some bits, and then see if the other person, going back to that listening thing, is seeing if the other person's going to play off that and go, oh, that's a good joke, I'll jump in with something else, I'll jump in with something else, I'll jump in with something else.
How often do you, if you have time obviously, how often do you do like a wild shot at the end where you do kind of let the actors throw out their random ideas?
It all depends on what it is I'm shooting. If it's for TV, very, very rarely.
Imagine how much time they shoot.
It's not just that. TV is a writer's medium, so the script is gone. Like you can't really venture away, and I get told off a lot for. I'm like, it's a guide, it's fine, and they're like, no, Stephen, it's you have to check if you want to change your line. I'm like, oh yeah, I forget about that. Whereas in film, again, the whole point is that you should have more time to play. I always think the best ideas in film come from playing. That's one thing I would say to all of you, whenever you get your actors, the more time you get to play, the better your films will be. The more interesting you can be with your camera positions, your blocking like we did with the status, and all of that stuff, the more interesting you can be. And when you know what your visual language is going to be for the film, and you can get your actors to play with that, then you're going to create something more fun. Spielberg on Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he would rewrite scenes every night and come up with new fun things. And I think that is lost a lot these days because of things that we were talking about, like storyboarding and everything else. Everybody previses everything. Everybody, and they forget that you've got wonderful people that you can play with. Like, it's toys in a toy box. That's the way I like it, not like, but I grew up, I was one of those kids who at 15, 16 was probably still playing with his action figures, and everyone was like, loser. And I was like, that's what I want to do for a living, is essentially play with human action figures. And if anybody thinks that filmmaking isn't that, that's all it is, and I would spend hours. I never was that kid that was like, pew, 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 pew. I would just spend hours setting them up into like staged environments, and then figure out where I want to sort of see the action from. And that, I think, is something that we've lost a lot because people aren't kind of getting into that, and they go, oh, I've storyboarded my film. It's like, okay, well, you've storyboarded 15 shots for this scene. And it's like, you don't need 15 shots. And they're like, no, I need a shot of the feet coming in. It's like, you're not telling the story. Tell me the story. What is the story? And we'd tell more from seeing him looking at a mural of something on there than seeing a set of feet come in. It might be interesting to have the feet if you're, again, trying to create some kind of tension. If it's a sequence where you want to build that tension of, oh, this person's got, who are they going to meet? Seeing shots of feet going through a sequence is really interesting and fun, but you've got to know that and then come up with it. I mean, Shining's a prime example. The Steadicam shot of the kid on the tricycle, I think, came from the Steadicam operator just walking along, and Kubrick could see on his monitor the kid cycling, and he went, that's a great shot, let's do that. And they added that into the film. And it's when you find those little moments that you're like, oh, that's interesting, let's shoot that, and finding the time to do that. Anything else? Was that fun? Informative? Did I just talk too much? Probably did. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Thank you.